We're so happy to have you here tonight, and this is a special night where all of the ladies from High Street and all of their friends and relatives, we gather as women. And I don't know about you, but I love to hear how God has worked in people's lives. I love to hear their stories. And tonight we have gathered some ladies here. We're talking about surrender and about how God met them, how they met God. And I'm excited for you to hear each one of them. And are you going to introduce them?
Yes, so first we have Shelby Ganadin. Can we give it up for Shelby? I've known Shelby for a long time, since she was in college and she interned here, and that's where it all started. I love it. Welcome, Shelby. We also have Morgan Gessner. Morgan is amazing. Morgan sings on our worship team. She's a resident currently, and we just are excited to hear from her. And then we have Natalie Jones. We're so excited. Natalie has been here for, how long have you been here now? How many years?
Feels like forever.
Feels like forever. There it is, ladies. I love it. Well, we're so excited that you all are here and willing just to share your stories. As we prepared for this, we just got to hear a little bit, and so I'm really excited for you all to hear from them.
Tonight we'd like to hear a little bit about how you came to know the Lord, and was there someone who shared the gospel with you? What was that like? And tell us about that story. You want to start, Natalie?
I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so I didn't think that I needed the Lord. I knew of him, I just didn't know him. And to be honest, I really didn't want anything to do with him. When I was 21, I got married. My husband was a Christian, and he tried to disciple me, but I was what the Bible calls that contentious woman. I made it very difficult for him, and I basically threw a fit every time he brought the subject up, and he stopped asking. So fast forward a little bit, when I was 25, my father and stepmom were killed in a car accident, and that really had a profound impact on me. I started to think about the brevity of life. I wasn't thinking about spiritual things. I was just thinking about how we wanted to live our life. We had some friends that lived in Somerset, Kentucky. We were from San Diego, and we just thought that looks like a better way to raise our children. So we packed up our little family, and we moved to Somerset. What we didn't know was that was right smack in the Bible Belt, and God knew, and I'm so grateful for that. He placed us, we needed to go back to work, so we needed childcare. We didn't have family to help us, and we decided to place our kids in what we thought would be the safest environment, and that was a child daycare center run by the church that was near our home. And that's basically where our lives took a dramatic turn towards the Lord, because the director of that daycare center was also the children's pastor's wife, and every Friday, she was so faithful. She was on mission to invite us to church. I never took offense to it. I knew that she loved my kids, and I appreciated that, but I didn't understand that she was on mission to share the love of Christ with me. And she would do this faithfully week after week after week, and I would lie to her every Friday. I'd say, we're too busy, it's not our thing, whatever. But she continued to ask. And then finally one day she said, Natalie, why don't you just try one time? Just try one time. I promise you and Bob and the kids are going to love it. So I said, fine. I didn't mean it. I got in the car, went home, told Bob. I back up a little bit. I told her, we can't, because I just can't wake up. We're so tired. We work all the time. And Cheryl, if we could wake up, we would come. And she said, how about I call and wake you up? And I'm like, really? But I thought, okay, you can try. So I went home and told Bob, Cheryl's going to call us on Sunday morning. Don't answer the phone. It's true. And we forgot, so we answered the phone. And what we didn't realize is she had forgotten that they were going to be out of town that Sunday, and that's back when it cost money to call long distance, and she called anyway. And that did something to my heart. I thought, if she's willing to call us, to honor her promise, and to pay for it, we should at least go and shut her up. We'll go once. So we went, we were late, we walked into the sanctuary, and everything I thought about Christianity or Christians kind of just melted away because they were engaging each other during the greeting time. They were loving on each other. They were hugging, and they acted like they really wanted to be there. And I accepted Christ, and we've been serving him ever since.
We can clap for that. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
I grew up knowing a lot about the Lord, but not truly knowing the Lord. So my story kind of starts, I went to a Catholic school from kindergarten through senior year of high school. And so for most of my life, my faith was just rules that I followed. I never explicitly had the gospel shared with me in a way to respond. And so my identity all throughout those years was in my own accomplishments, because how it was conveyed to me was I needed to prove myself worthy of love to God. And so I found my identity in a lot of things, trying to find love from other people. I'm a singer, and so a lot of people knew me through that. And so when I came to college, I knew I wanted to live the right life and do all the right things and make people happy. I'm a big people pleaser. But I remember when I came to college, I didn't know what my identity lied in, because for so long I was known as a singer. And I remember coming to college, and my sophomore year, a girl named Jacqueline shared the gospel with me. And when she explained it as a free gift that I could receive, I was mad. I was frustrated. I was confused, because for so long my life looked like I had to do all these things to earn God's love. And for her to say there's nothing you can do, actually, I felt very hurt and very confused. And I processed the gospel for a long time, and a couple of months later I accepted Christ, and my life has just looked totally different. And I'm so thankful that Jacqueline had that conversation with me, because from an outsider perspective, you would think I knew the Lord and that I was reading the Bible daily, but I had never had that shared with me and never made that decision for myself.
Yeah, my story starts pretty similarly to Morgan's. I grew up going to a Catholic school. We had an interesting relationship with the school and the church because my parents were divorced at a young age, and my mom really struggled with that, on how to come back to the church and kind of what that looks like. So we stayed in school because my parents wanted us to be good kids and be raised correctly and follow the rules. And that kind of really left a mark on me. I graduated that school and went to a new high school, and I wanted to be the good kid who followed the rules and kind of did everything right, like Morgan was saying. And thankfully, about my sophomore year of high school, I met somebody named Whitney, and she worked for an organization called the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and I was doing everything I could to be like the poster child of my high school, so I played every single sport they let me. And so that's how I met Whitney, it was through sports, and she sat down and she shared the gospel with me. She walked me through it, and she asked me if anybody had ever told me that before. And I said, no, I've known of God. I've never known him, though. And so she kind of processed with me what that would look like to have a relationship with him. And meanwhile, at home, things were kind of hard, just feeling very lonely at home. And I was just trying to fill that void with everything that high school could offer. And so when she shared the gospel with me and told me that there was a God who loves me and wanted a relationship with me, I was like, that sounds good. And that sounds good, like a good thing to add to that list that I've got going. So I accepted Christ in high school, maybe not for the best motives, but really thankful for Whitney's influence in my life. And then a few years later, I went to college at Missouri State. And I remember very vividly my first day of campus, stepping on campus and like having this moment of, okay, I have to make a choice. Whitney's not here anymore, and I can continue to try to live my faith out, or I can start over. And I just joined a sorority. I was making some friends, and I could have this like true college lifestyle. And I was kind of leaning into that. And then I met Alex. Alex became my big in my sorority, and she, again, sat down with me, and she just asked me about my faith and asked me questions. And she could kind of tell that I knew the right answers, but that I was just kind of talking my way through it. And so point blank, she asked me, is Jesus the Lord of your life? Have you ever made that decision? And I really struggled with the answer to that. I wanted to say yes, but some parts of my life that wasn't true of. And so for about a year, Alex processed that with me if Jesus was truly the Lord of my life. And shortly after that, I made Jesus the Lord of my life and just kind of got to surrender some areas of my life to him that I hadn't before. And yeah, my life has been really different ever since.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love to hear just how, there was women in their life that shared with them and were committed to the gospel. And I love that she called you to wake you up, Natalie. Man, that's awesome. Okay, so our second question is, as we grow in our relationship with God, one of the things that we learn is this principle of surrender and just being all in with God. And so what areas in your life, Shelby, maybe you can start us off, we can kind of go back that way. Has it been hard for you to say yes to God or to be all in?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned that I said yes to God to the things that were convenient for a long time. So when it was easy, I said yes. And then I kind of got to college and, grew up a little bit. And there were some harder things in my life that started to happen. And saying yes to God wasn't as easy anymore. And one thing that happened is my whole life I've had a tricky relationship with my dad. I mentioned that my parents were divorced. He was an alcoholic and struggled with some drug addiction. And in college, he actually went to prison. And so we just had a really rocky relationship. And I had just started really walking with God. And then that happened. And I really wrestled with, okay, what do I do now? How do I keep going in this relationship? And I feel like for a few years, God really just asked me, like, I need you to forgive him. I need you to just put it aside and trust me and forgive him. And that was really hard. I worked through that for a long time, and honestly, many years into my walk with God, just struggled with that decision to kind of forgive him and just figure out what that relationship looks like. But it was like one of the first times that I've had to really look at God and say, okay, I trust you. I trust that your ways are better, because if I could have it my way, I would just kind of put this behind me and just try to figure out life on my own. But God was asking me to do that, and so I had to surrender to him and figure out forgiveness. And it helped me understand the gospel more clearly of I have been forgiven too. And so that was a big thing that I had to surrender to him.
Yeah, that's great.
My biggest surrender has been giving up my future plans to whatever the Lord has for me. Right out of high school, I came to Missouri State. I chose a degree in speech language pathology. I went to grad school for that degree. I graduated. I got married 2 weeks later. We were kind of following in all of the cultural things of things to do next. And the last 2 years, I worked as a speech language pathologist at Tiger Paw with Ozark School District, and I loved my job. I loved the kids. I loved the people I worked with. I was close in my relationship with the Lord. And I remember whenever the Lord put on my heart to do the residency program here at High Street. And I was like, okay, but why? I have a job that I love. And I realized in that moment I hadn't fully surrendered to what the Lord's next step was. I was kind of just going with what I was comfortable with. And I remember thinking through that. I prayed for a whole year about doing the residency because I was holding on so tightly to what I wanted my future to be. And so that was a huge area of my life where I left my job, and now I'm doing the residency program here at High Street, and the Lord has just blessed that, and I've just seen him be faithful in his provision, his sovereignty, in ways that I would not have known if I would have taken that step out in faith.
That's great.
For me, surrendering to being submissive. Submission was a real big issue for me. I grew up in a home that there was a lot of violence and abuse, and as a result, I think I had an idea that I needed to be in control in order to protect myself. So I really struggled with authority. I needed to learn how to submit to God and to my husband. And as the Lord would have it, since we started at the church, one of the first ladies' ministry events I went to, the pastor's wife taught on submission. And I was new, so she showed me grace, but she came off of the stage and she said, "What did you think about that?" And I didn't have enough sense to keep my opinion to myself. So I told her that I thought that what she shared with the ladies was just the biggest bunch of baloney I'd ever heard in my life. And this changed my life because she looked at me. She could have written me off. She could have easily said, "That girl is extra grace required and too much work." But she didn't. She looked at me with love in her eyes and she said, "I'm glad you're here. Just keep coming, just keep listening." So I did. I kept coming, I kept showing up, I kept listening, and pretty soon I began to see that, the things that they were telling me from God's Word, I was seeing evidence in their lives. And the things that I heard the preacher preach about, I was seeing evidence of that in their lives. And pretty soon I began to understand that God was trustworthy, that I could trust him, that he was in control, and I could surrender that to him. it changed everything.
That's great. I want to circle back really quick to Shelby because you have an area in your life where you had to surrender to God. So I want you to share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have a 5-month-old baby boy at home. His name is Grady, and I love him so much. And it's been a journey to get to him. And so that is an area of my life that we really had to surrender to God. My husband and I have been married for a little over 6 years now, and a few years back we decided that we wanted to grow our family. We were really excited, and we started to try to have a baby, and it just took a lot longer than we expected it to, and we are at the age where everyone we know is having babies, and so it was just really a challenge for us to be in this season of life and really, really, really want a child, and God asking us to wait. And so I remember a very pivotal moment for us was kind of, it was almost a year and a half in at that point. We just kind of looked at each other and we were like, we trust God, but we have to really give this to him and like truly surrender it to him, not just that he'll do it in his timing, just that he might not ever do it, and we have to be okay with that. And that was really, really hard for me. I'd been walking with God for probably 10 years at that point, and I just didn't want to let it go. I was kind of too scared to say like, okay, yeah, your way would be better no matter what. But we kind of had to get to that point of, this is what I really, really want. But God, your way has been best this whole time. And so I know it's going to continue to be best. And so we kind of, we gave that to him. We asked him over and over again to do it. And eventually he did. And so we have our little boy at home. But we really had to just wait on him and just trust that his way was better than ours.
That's so great. When we just celebrate that little baby boy, he's so sweet. But tell us about, did you let community into that as you were, because, we all have things in our life where we want to surrender to God, we want to be all in, but that can be a challenge when we're isolated and by ourselves. And so as I'm hearing your stories, I'm hearing, that people were coming into your life. So tell us a little bit more about what that looked like.
Yeah, that was honestly kind of a saving grace through a lot of it, was just that God gave us so much purpose, even though we were kind of idolizing almost as having this baby that we wanted to grow our family. But in the meantime, we got to really let some people into our life. And so we had a small group that they were praying for us every week, which was really sweet. And so it was really fun to celebrate with them. And then also I just had some younger girls in my life that I've been discipling or had discipled before, that I got to just open up with them and ask them to pray, and some older ladies in my life that were praying for us. And so it was really sweet because I feel like we, from all corners, we were covered in prayer. And yeah, I'm thankful for that.
That's so great. I love that. Ladies, do you have anything that you want to add to that as far as community?
I just feel very thankful and blessed too that Shelby led us into that part of their life, because like she said, we were able to grow our faith by seeing how God provided for them. And so I feel it's easy for us as women to think we're the only ones struggling, but when you let people in, they can not only celebrate with you, but they can pray alongside you. And that just grew my husband and I's faith so much, just watching them lean on the Lord during that time. It was just such an encouragement.
And on that note, can you think of some people who were examples to you? Maybe they influenced you as you grew in your relationship with God. Can you tell us a story about that?
I'll start. There was, as we were starting to go to church, after you go to church, you figure out soon that it's really helpful and beneficial to go to Sunday school. So we started going to Sunday school. And there was a greeter in our Sunday school who kind of took the attendance, and I could describe her best as like a Southern belle. She was the perfect Southern belle. And I was from Southern California, so she was a bit much for me, and not in a good way. Like, she was so friendly. But her name is Rhonda Smith, and she took an interest in me and would just seek me out and try to invite me to do things and want to spend time with me, but I was just keeping her at arm's length. And again, she spoke into my life one day, and she said, "Natalie, why don't you want to be my friend?" And I really had to evaluate why it was that I was pushing her away. And the truth was that I saw her as this perfect church lady, and I didn't see myself that way. I saw myself as flawed, and I just didn't measure up, so I was afraid to let her in, like you were speaking about. But I did eventually let her in, and she became one of the biggest blessings of my life because she modeled what it looked like to live a Christian life. She modeled what it looked like to be a Christian mommy, to be a good Christian wife, she taught me how to read the Bible. I didn't even know where the books of the Bible were. I was just so green. And she took the time to show me that with love. What I think she taught me most is that everything that I admired in her, I could have hope to have that as well, because we love the same Jesus. We just love the same Jesus, and everything that he did for her, he was willing to do for me if I was willing to allow him to do that. So she changed my life.
I feel very blessed that I've had a lot of older women in my life just sit and have coffee with me and teach me what they're learning from God, and that he can show me those things too if I'm in his word daily. But something that comes to mind with this one are just people where they will welcome me into their home and cook a meal for me. And even if it was just one time, that has had such an impact of just their hospitality and how they show love to others, of welcoming them into their home, cooking a meal. I am not a good cook, and I have had so many ladies encourage me by just saying, when I was younger, I didn't know how to cook either. And that was just an area of my life that I was very self-conscious in. And so I just feel very thankful for the older ladies who are married, who are helping me. I'm 2.5 years married now, and we're still figuring it out. And so I just feel thankful for ladies who let me answer or ask the hard questions, but answer them with so much truth and so much love. And they don't always act like they have everything together. They kind of make me understand, they're wise, but they still don't have everything figured out, and that's okay. But they have the Lord, and we can hope in him. So.
Yeah, Morgan maybe is learning how to cook still, but she makes some really good white chocolate chip cookies, so she's growing with that. I also think of people who have welcomed me into their home. I think of my freshman year of college. There was a couple, their names were Amanda and Blake, and I didn't even know them super well at the time, but my freshman year of college, they invited me in for a meal, and I remember just walking into the door and just seeing two people who were married, who loved each other, who were working as a team, and just inviting me in. And it just kind of rocked my world. They weren't doing anything out of the norm that they normally do, but I didn't grow up in a Christian home, and that I know of, I'm the first believer in my family. And so just to see people welcome people in, pray for a meal, help each other cook, do the dishes, ask intentional questions, it really impacted my walk with God a lot. And then I think of Laura and Sharon Hoffman as well, Laura Demers and Sharon Hoffman. I call them my spiritual mother and my spiritual grandmother. For the last 5 to 10 years, they've sat down with me, and at coffee or at their house, any hardship in my life, any questions, doubts that I've had, they've just let me bring them to them and just be really honest to ask questions and point me back to Scripture and remind me what God says about those things.
Can I tell a little tale on Sharon Hoffman real quick? Where is she? Do you see her? Sharon Hoffman used to come to our home church when I was a brand new Christian, and she would speak to our ladies' conferences. And I remember thinking back then, I would love to be like that. I would love to know that lady. And now she goes to church with us. But God is really good.
I love that. Okay, so you've had people directly and indirectly disciple you, right? We're always being discipled by someone or even something. And so how has that been with just different women in different seasons of your life? And then we know that God calls us to then go and share the gospel and teach other women what it looks like to follow Jesus. And so how has that, someone doing that to you, changed how you do that for other women?
Yeah, I think just not growing up in a Christian home, I have needed a lot of guidance on pretty much every season of my life. In college, how to do all the things that college girls do. I needed help with that, and how to walk with God faithfully through the different things that come up in college. And then as I got married, I needed someone to tell me, how do you be a godly wife? What does that look like? And now as a mom, I have some friends that are teaching me that. And it's been fun to get to do that with other girls as well, like you were saying. And something that I think about that's really sweet is I worked on campus at Missouri State for campus ministry for a few years and had the privilege to get to disciple some girls. And I think about some of them, 4 or 5 years ago, we're sitting at coffee, and they're asking the hard questions kind of like I was, and allowing me to speak some truth into their life. And a lot of it was, hey, maybe this guy that you're dating, I don't know if that's who God has for you. I'm not sure that this relationship is honoring to the Lord. And we've had some hard conversations over the years, and now fast forward 5, 6 years later, some of those girls, I've gotten to stand beside them in their weddings as they married amazing godly men, and attend some of their baby showers as they get ready to celebrate babies that they're going to raise up to know the Lord, hopefully. And that has been just incredible, getting to see them come to know the Lord, make some hard decisions and surrender some things to him, and then get to stand beside them on really important days of their life has been really special.
I think for me, for sure, Laura Demers has been a huge impact in my life. She's mentoring me right now, and other women as well. But I think something that's impacted me the most is they just showed me how to be a godly woman and what spiritual disciplines are and how to live them out. And I remember the first time I opened my Bible, I had no idea what to do. I had no clue where to start, and I felt nervous about that because I was like, I'm a Christian, but I don't know how to read my Bible. I just felt so fearful to share that with someone, but it's okay. And there are women that want to teach you how to do that. And I just remember someone teaching me how to do a quiet time. They took me to a coffee shop and showed me what it meant, how they spent time with the Lord, how they prayed, and different things like that. And it's just been really helpful to know that there are women that are willing to answer those questions, even if you feel silly asking them. There's no silly questions.
And I think it's important to know that we can mentor at any age. There are ladies that are these beautiful ladies right here, a couple years younger than myself, and we can learn from everyone if we're just open to it and willing to receive it.
That's great. I love that so much. And I think that encourages all of us to ask the Lord, okay, what am I doing to reach people with the gospel? How can I mentor someone, disciple someone? Because I think everyone on stage here would say it's always worth it. It's always worth it to say yes to God. So that's a great thing for all of us to remember tonight. So as we close, what would you want to share with our ladies tonight? How has surrendering your life to God changed your life? What has been on the other side of surrendering to the Lord?
Me to start? Sure. Okay. I would say everything I could have ever imagined. Surrendering to the Lord gave me a hope and a future that I never could have imagined when I was that little girl in San Diego. He changed everything. He broke generational curses in our family. Our children, I wasn't saved until our children were 3 and 6 years old, and one of the greatest mercies, I think, for me is to know that my children really don't remember a time without Jesus. There was a time without Jesus. I'd been married several years, but God was gracious, and he helped me to grow and to change the dynamics in our home and our marriage. Our grandchildren, God gave us a wonderful, beautiful, godly Christian daughter-in-law, and she loves our son well, and they modeled that for their children, how to love God and serve God. And I was thinking about this in preparing. I think one of the sweetest things is that our grandchildren have never known a day without Jesus. And if you had asked me that when I was, before Jesus, I would have never imagined that was possible. But he changes everything, and I would never go back.
I think for so long I was worried to fully surrender because I still wanted some control. And I could not tell you how much freer it is to put your hope and trust and faith in Jesus than trying to hold on tight. I have just felt so much freedom in knowing that he has good plans, whatever that may be, but that I don't have to know all the time. I think I want to know, but that it's okay to not know, and that putting your faith and trust in him is the best decision that you could ever make. And there's so much freedom that comes with doing that.
Yeah, I think I would just want to say that God is faithful. I'm reading through the Psalms right now, and that is just over and over and over and over again. Just keep hearing like God is faithful, and it's just I'm in a season of my life right now where I can just nod my head and say like, yes, that is absolutely true. And there have been seasons in my life where it's been harder to say that, but I'm thankful that through surrender and some other things that I can sit here and say like, God, yeah, he really is good and he's faithful. And if you haven't made it a relationship with God, I would encourage you to think about that tonight, ask questions. That's what we're here for, and he's faithful and he's good. So
That's so good. Well, we have just so enjoyed hearing from these ladies tonight and their stories. Can we give it up for them? They are amazing.